This conference will now be recorded.
Indeed.
Boom, boom, boom. Instructions on exiting the building in the event of emergency. Out the door. That too. You can go down the steps there, or there's a hallway with a set of steps back there. Agenda additions, deletions, or changes in the order of the agenda items. Okay. I don't see anyone in person in the public. Do we have anyone online?
Not as of yet.
Okay, so we don't need that. Announcements and staff report. Any
Where's
commissioners?
the number 3 meet up there?
There are 3 people, Kelsey, Paul, and you all.
Are
This-
we're number 3?
Yes.
This computer,
This room is 1, and then these 2 computers are the 3.
Perfect.
our whole team over here.
Just allows us a little more.
Any commissioner announcements?
Oh.
Staff?
Not since last week. We'll have more for you next week, though.
I will say that I heard from, I was not able to attend myself, but I heard from our staff person, Nick, that the Energy Festival on Saturday went well, seemed to be well attended, had a lot of good vendors and events and things, and generally was deemed a success and a template for future events in the coming years.
We had some good media coverage, which is great because whole.
I got the same feedback from the people at the land trust who were there.
Good.
Paul and I were there.
Yeah.
So a couple of us that did attend.
Sorry, I missed it. I couldn't.
It was good. The packet from my guess, the weatherization packet, there was a little kit that they were handing out that was, I thought, really good.
Yeah. Great.
Get any energy swag?
Swag?
Yeah.
Swag energy.
Free ice cream cone for cherries. That's about it. Yeah, there was swag. There actually
Well,
was.
good. And the more things like that happen in City Center, the better. Get people down here. All right. Well, we
Can I
blown-
just do a
I'm
quick
sorry,
tech thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Darylyn, can you confirm that you can hear us online?
I sure can.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
That's okay. Thank you for checking.
Darylyn.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, we've blown through the first 4. Number 5, city plan, continued discussion about public comment. I'm not sure how would you guys like to format this? Would you like us to go through each commissioner's suggestions? What
I
would,
think that's up to you all, how you'd like to tackle it.
I'm happy to do that. Maybe
Um,
start with Dan Albrecht.
if we,
He's not here, is he?
no,
But
if you go to the end of the packet, I know we had, sorry, let's get to
which I nearly missed.
there. You're the missed.
Well, they were after the end of the.
Yeah. Where are we? Sorry. Scrolling like mad here.
I just asked a question before we start.
Yeah.
Obviously wasn't here, but how did it go? Did we have a good turnout? That's a good success.
We had probably, what, about 10 people, 12 people in the audience?
Physically, yeah.
Yeah, and we
In
had
person?
probably 5 or 6 online.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And it took up the full 2 hours.
Almost.
Yeah.
To the point where it wasn't, the public comment plus a little bit of commissioner discussion ended up taking up close to 9 o'clock and then deciding not to kind of try to force continuing that discussion. Then, so, yeah.
Jessica's here. I will,
Wait,
that's all right.
sorry.
Good.
We've blown through half the agenda already.
Super quick.
Super great. We are just starting
We're going to vote on
the meat of our discussion.
the city plan 2020.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
So it looks like the first set of recommendations, that's yours, yes, Donna?
Dan Albrecht?
They were,
Others-
they were Dan
Oh,
Albrecht's
Dan.
comments, but I kind of
Yeah.
put them into my comments, and
So those are
your-
that's your handwriting.
that's my handwriting.
That's a high-tech window.
But it
Well,
says-
it's a PDF, so it
Okay.
makes it a little tricky to
I'll let that-
edit quickly.
We're
Yeah, I
at
had
the
a
end of
a
the
few-
PDF.
I think I like most of his suggestions,
recommendations. I would say that we go through them.
but I had 2
Yeah.
or 3 that I thought,
Do we need an official movement to put the Madam Chair in charge or just?
No.
So just usurp me?
You can just,
That's fine.
I don't need to. Are we still in the introduction one?
No, yes, we are. Yeah, we're the first set of things. So
Great.
So,
Discussion, go ahead, Michael.
yeah, his first comment under housing actions, I think that's kind of derails our effort to focus on areas.
We're gonna start on the introduction.
Yeah, why don't we
I-
go
you
into-
gotta
Start on
back up one.
page 2.
You're jumping the gun there.
Maybe I'll got it in the wrong order.
This page is the introduction.
Yeah, it's on
I got it.
page 2.
But I have it at page 2.
I think his first comment has to do with what he expressed to us about his displeasure with the climate resilient piece being
Yep.
put above the other 4.
And that was his comment. The modifications I made were mine.
Mhm.
Because I was trying to reflect what he was saying without not putting climate resilient at the top. You know, so it kind of just moved things around a little bit and then added while recognizing other important goals in our diverse community. Because I think that was the whole point of, you know, the issues that people had with it. There's other issues that are very important, even though we want to keep climate resilient at the top, you know, maybe not separate it from the other 3. So move South Burlington holds high the following values and move that up above climate resilient. And then it's listed 4, but climate resilient is at the top.
Before we get to that, can we talk about the first edit, which is getting rid of the word overriding?
Oh, yeah, overriding, right.
Which
I think we should leave it.
I think that word should stay personally. So I'm just
I also think
sharing that.
we should leave it. There's also, I think, while recognizing other important goals in our diverse community, it's okay to be in there. But I don't think we should reverse the order, because that also waters down the message a little bit, like the removal of overriding. You know, we wanted this message to be really strong, and so that the other part I think is fine.
I would disagree with you, Michael. I think based on the first paragraph we have in the whole comp plan, I think it's pretty apparent that climate change is at the top of the priorities. So I don't have a problem with what Donna suggested.
You mean what Dan suggested?
Dan, I said, well,
Well, it's a
No,
combination. It's a
Donna's
combination of
suggesting-
what we both
She's
suggested.
suggesting based on public comment.
yeah.
Because there were other people who also suggested this as well. You know, just like Michael, you might be supporting some things you heard as public comment. It's
No, I understand.
oftentimes from multiple people too, so.
so
And if you want to keep overriding in there, that's okay.
I'm okay with that.
But I would say still moving that
Sentence
one
above.
line above
Yeah.
climate resilient and then still keeping climate resilient at the top. Because I think it's pretty obvious from the way we're talking about it that it is overriding. But not separating it from inclusive, fair and just, thoughtful and sustainable and collaborative, engaged, which are really kind of, you know, I mean, the comments were that those were very highly regarded in the voting, which they were. So I think it would be good for us to recognize that those comments were not just from one person. There was a number of people that made that same comment.
What does it say at the far end there? What were those last 2 words at the end of the sentences or something?
Above climate resilience.
Oh, that's not to add that as words, but just location,
Move it up.
just the location of that line. Move it up.
Okay, well, it sounds like, what I'm hearing is people want to keep in the word overriding, but the other comments here that Donna has written are acceptable.
So
Is that?
Yeah,
Or-
keep add in while recognizing other important
I'll just jump in and I'll say there were several people in the public comment who had an issue with climate resilient being raised above the others. I think there were at least an equal number of people who were saying very clearly that they thought it was a very important objective. And from my perspective, if we were in a different situation than we are in today, I would probably be less inclined to try to hold strong on this, but we are facing a real challenge. And whatever all else happens, if we don't figure out how to take care of the climate issue, and I know Vermont is a small state, and I know South Burlington is a small part of Vermont, but this is a global crisis that was largely created by North Americans in this world over the last umpteen decades. And while I see housing as being really critical, especially for many, many people in our community, if our environment is gone, we are gone. And I think, from my perspective, I would really like to see that hierarchy remain, even though I understand the concern. If we don't tackle this one, we're done. So I don't mean to be a zealot, but this last summer has been a real example of just the tip of what we're facing. And we have big challenges in how to change the way we're living in South Burlington.
Donna and then Fran. So
I think the emphasis is.
Donna had her hand up.
Well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but the whole equity oriented needs to be on an equal level. Because, I mean, we start to see how people sometimes equate, saving the environment with things that aren't at all equitable, and people read that sometimes as, oh, you're trying to keep us, people without money out of your neighborhood.
Yes.
And I think that by keeping the four, climate resilient can be on top, but by keeping all four, I think it sort of sends the message that equity really stands equal with, with environment. You can't do one and ignore the other.
Fran had his hand up. Do you know?
I'm scratching my head.
Okay, and then I don't know where you're.
No, it's just it's a question of emphasis that at the outset we wanted to have, that the climate crisis is the existential threat that we're facing. And I don't think we should lose that emphasis, and having it up there to hit people in the eyes first, I think it's an important way to convey this message.
Okay, and just to be clear, Michael, do you, I think no one's suggesting changing all of the introductory text above it where, you had written about the existential, and then I think no one's talking about changing it so the climate resilient isn't first. So climate resilient would stay first. So I think the suggestion is that little extra sentence, the South Burlington also holds high the following, would maybe go, wouldn't separate between climate resilience and the other ones. That's basically your suggestion, right? Maybe not have
And
that
take out the word
separated.
also, and take out the word also, so that all four of those are considered
You
So
mean
maybe that would go
as values.
first.
I mean,
And their values.
It
they're
would go
considered values.
first.
at the top?
Yeah.
Yes.
Climate
But
resilience.
I think we should add what is written also about while recognizing other important goals in our diverse community that should go in.
So, so Kelsey's trying to do this on the fly. So, so she has the while recognizing sentence and then moved the South Burlington holds high the following values
Up top.
up top
Take out the word also.
and take out the word also,
Yeah.
which she took out.
She didn't, when she moved it.
I think it might be crossed out.
I did cross that, yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
I just want to say, I think the fact that we start the plan with the statement about climate change in bright red, in large letters, bold,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty apparent.
Gives it some emphasis.
Yeah, so I don't think we're diluting that by doing this here, but I think we are acquiescing that the other three goals are very important as well.
Well, and I will say that I don't disagree with you at all. And the only other thing I would suggest, I think this is fine. The only other thing I would have suggested is that putting language about equity in the section about climate resilience. Because I think that if we try to deal with the climate issue without dealing with equity, we're going to get nowhere. And what we need to do needs to be as accessible to somebody who is on the Section 8 voucher as it is somebody who's driving a Porsche. And so I think this works. I'll back off.
Okay, for me.
Okay, then I think we're good with those changes and we'll go into housing.
Kelsey, did you make a change that impacted this? Didn't you mention?
No.
This had to do with Dan being not happy about us just talking about certain areas of the city.
Yeah, I thought we
That
talked
was
about
Morris,
this.
but yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of people and
Yeah.
Dan was one of them. Nora was one of them. And I mean, it seemed to me to make sense. And, you know, Paul also mentioned, you know, because of the new change in the law, you know, that you can't, you know, there's a certain density. If you're building and you have water and sewer, you know, there's going to be certain density requirements that
Yeah.
are legally required. But in South Burlington, we can set aside certain natural resource areas, which kind of reduces the overall density. But for those areas you are building, it seems like 5 units an acre is not a particularly high number.
So what I verified is there was a few comments made that it sounded like we were talking about infill in only certain neighborhoods. And I went through the plan and verified that the words that are included in the plan are existing neighborhoods. So because that's definitionally what infill is. So infill into existing neighborhoods is the language that's used in the plan. I think that was read maybe a little bit to mean like older neighborhoods, because there's other language about some of the things in older neighborhoods. So it does say existing, which I thought was consistent with those comments saying, you know, infill into, you know, the orchards and infill into Butler Farm. It doesn't matter that one is newer than the other.
The only thing I would raise on that is that developments going forward, some of the developments that are in the pipeline are still relative low density developments.
Mhm.
And those developments would be ripe for infill in the future as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So saying existing sort of limits it from here back, as opposed to what is still in the pipeline and will be happening.
Say infill
They
into
will become-
neighborhoods.
they
and
will
not say-
become existing.
And not add the qualifier.
Yeah,
I think, so the thing that,
well, I'd add the qualifier all.
Just into.
Get rid of the
neighborhoods.
existing and replace it with all. Because, I mean, it's hard to do infill on a lot that's a 40 unit housing project on a small lot, but if you say all neighborhood or all areas, then obviously where it can't happen, it won't. But it makes sure that nothing's excluded.
what I can say is that the commission previously, sort of on the tail end of the interim zoning, wanted to be careful that infill reflects infill and infill isn't all of South Burlington. Because I think some of the feedback that you had gotten from some folks was that there are perspectives that all of South Burlington is infill to Vermont. Well, but I'm saying that's why there are some of these qualifiers. So saying all neighborhoods or neighborhoods, I think we would be comfortable in saying that retains that feeling. If you say all areas,
I think all
then I think
neighborhoods is
that
good.
opens up this area, this gray area that I think you're trying to be more precise about, but this is your document, so.
Well, I know
People
it's
like
not
all
on the
neighborhoods?
page we're on right
Yeah,
now,
All neighborhoods is okay.
but are people okay with, instead of it just saying infill only in existing neighborhoods, have it be in neighborhoods? Get rid of the word existing.
You don't like all?
I mean, we can say all,
I'd say all neighborhoods.
all neighborhoods. Does that seem okay? Okay, well, all neighborhoods.
Probably a big search.
So could we,
So what do we need?
how will it read
Yeah,
now?
so this is different than what's in
This
front of
is
us.
different than what we just.
Yeah, because this is talking about modern, affordable and moderate income housing. And I think this should say throughout all areas of the
I
city.
don't have a problem with that.
I think it's a great thing to have.
So in the middle, where there's the caret, or at the end of the sentence, because they actually mean different things.
Well, I mean, the comments that Dan made were in both locations. So this is transcribed exactly as he commented on it.
So
I like
the
it in
first
both.
one refers to increasing the supply in all areas, but the last one refers to allowing for
Increased heights.
increased heights in all areas.
Well, I mean, I've been to some, was that DRB meeting or someplace where there was some discussion about this house having a roof that was like a foot too tall.
Yeah.
And they were making a ridiculous argument that they should tear the house down. And I'm thinking, why couldn't it be even 3 stories tall in that neighborhood? It
That was
doesn't,
on Spear Street.
it was on
They tear
Spear
it down.
Street.
They had to
Didn't
tear the
tear
top
house
floor
down.
off and put a different roof on it.
That was so upsetting. You know, that whole thing. I was like, we gotta do something so that people don't like.
Is there a way to
do this.
differentiate between, is there a way to differentiate between single family and multifamily homes?
Oh, so Paul,
That was a new build down there, and that was in a development that's been very controversial for years, and where there were specific parameters set that you had to be done. And then they violated those, when they built the first house, so, I mean, that was not a poor family that, somehow mistakenly.
Well, apparently the city's planning office had approved it because it had to do with the definition of what was grade level and how do you measure the height. And so to me, it seemed like they were beating up on the planning office, because it wasn't a clear violation at all.
We beat up on that.
I think
Not
in
all
that
specific.
specific instance, it's worth noting that the applicant, the developer of their own volition took the roof off, recognizing that they'd made an error. It was not, we were in discussion with them and they said, I don't want to fight this. I want to be correct. So I think that they deserve some credit for having done that without being dragged through. But I think that, I guess the question that I would suggest that you clarify here, do you mean heights as in stories being added? Or do you mean heights as in, adjustments? Because I think this sentence is really talking about tools to increase housing supply, which I think heights really means
Stories.
stories of heights,
I think,
as opposed to adjusting, 28 feet becomes 32 feet, something like that, which is really.
I'd say any way that you can increase density without having to add more footprint would be a good thing.
But the question is, if you have, you move the needle by a few feet, you're just going to end up with a single family home with a cathedral ceiling,
I was gonna
not an additional unit. It's about stories when you're
Right,
talking.
I'd like to see
Can this
additional stories.
differentiate between single family and multi-family structures if we're doing, because there's a reason to keep single family homes at a reasonable height. And that's why a lot of the height regulations have been put in. But that prevents being able to put a duplex with a over-under situation, et cetera. So if there was a way to parse it so that it's talking about multifamily housing.
I guess I would just point out this language, if you read the sentence as a whole and not just as applying the second part, not the first with the caret. The language that's stricken was focused on city center and transportation corridors with the idea that greater housing unit density should be focused there first, instead of adding, 3-story buildings to Dorset Farms. That's inaccessible.
Right, I think that was Dan's issue, was he was not happy about, that's not equitable.
Yeah, I think.
All that development was going to be dumped
Yep.
on those 2 areas and other neighborhoods would be
Yeah.
excluded.
And he made an impression on me when he said that, because I kind of agree, that I couldn't afford to live in my neighborhood if we had the current zoning. You know, I couldn't afford that house that I have. Because it's, you know, it allowed for 5 units an acre, you know, in my neighborhood.
So, are people okay with these changes as is, now that we understand them?
Are we okay? What is the question? Are we okay?
Are you okay with the markup?
No, I think the struck out portion of that paragraph was the important part of it, which emphasizes that we're focusing housing and prioritizing housing where we want it, which is what's written in that struck out section.
No.
So I would also
That's
just,
where we want the density.
I would just note that this is, it's a list of options. So the putting throughout all areas of the city where the carrot is emphasizes that we're talking about increasing housing supply in all areas of the city. And the list that follows leaves some flexibility for what tools should be applied in different areas. You know, do you have expedited review processes or whatever, like these things could be applied in different parts of the city. So the edit is actually modifying both allow for increased maximum height of stories and require minimum stories, which I'm not sure is what you're actually going for in all of the city, as opposed to it being one option in a suite of other options that suite would apply through all areas of the city.
I think I agree with Michael with putting in the first throughout all areas of
Yeah.
the city, but keeping the strikeout, like not striking it out. Not make the change at the end.
It would work for me.
I'd say as long as, you know, transportation corridors, that you can start expanding on that, because some people did make the comment, it's like, well, if we allowed for greater density on portions of Dorset Street, then potentially we could have public transportation there. Because there is some interest in trying to get a public transportation route that touches the southeast quadrant neighborhoods, and without the density there, that makes it unlikely.
Yeah, my sense of Dan's frustration was that all those developments, low density developments like Simonville and
Spear
Butler
Meadow,
Farms and
Spear
Spear
Meadows,
Meadows,
all those one-story houses they're building in Spear Meadows is frustrating.
make it impossible for public transit to be profitable. There's just not, they're just spread out too much.
Yeah.
And he was very vociferous about that, which elicited the comment from me that, yeah, we agree with him, but we can't unbuild those developments.
Well, I think he was also concerned about the equity.
That too,
He
yes.
definitely mentioned that,
You know,
but I'm okay with the change as you mentioned.
Okay, so as written up here, just adding the first throughout all areas of the city.
Can I suggest that you might want to not say all areas of the city and just say throughout the city, because all areas of the city also includes things like habitat blocks.
Yes.
National Protection
All
District.
right.
Throughout the city means
Throughout the city.
geographically everywhere. All areas means all areas.
Yes, I think that's
Yeah.
probably good. And one thing I'll say about the second part and putting it into some context. I know it's a long time, but it's not, this is for 8 years. And I think in the next 8 years, we're not going to see transportation changes to the point where Dorset Farms and all those areas are going to be
So
transportation hubs where all of a sudden we want to put a lot of dense housing, whereas starting and then building out over time enables that to build in.
It's a school.
Okay, so I think this next one, we'd actually already decided we were gonna put in this about the gardening. So the
Yeah, I
next
think-
one is about the community gardens.
yeah, I think we
I think
may
we
already
are-
have that. It
Yeah, we had already decided we wanted to add
goes
this.
38 and 39.
I think we did it.
Can we suggest one other change to that action 4 there in the list of things that might be complementary to what you're saying? Saying something like smaller lot sizes, because that might reflect what you mean as one of the tools that could be applied in a lot of places without saying we want 9-story buildings along in Butler Farms. And you don't have to do any of these. These are just a list of possibilities.
Right, this action lists a variety of regulatory tools, including but not limited to these things. So this is a list of examples.
So adding smaller lot sizes.
And frankly, Act 47 is doing that for us.
And we don't need to add ADUs there, do we?
That was something
was
you
something
added a
else.
few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
But I didn't know whether it needed to be in this list of,
it is
It's already there.
promoting accessory dwelling units,
okay.
right there.
So the next
My
one is the
eyes.
community garden one. Community garden plots.
Am I right that those two goals, 38 and 39, are in fact in the text already? What Dan has written? I know we talked about
Oh, yeah, it's already in.
Already for residents, it's already there.
it.
Yeah, we talked about that one after the public hearing, the first,
That's already there.
the first comments.
That was in his comments from a previous 500.
Yeah, we changed it to 100% after the public comment.
And then we added you added the priority for residents who don't have other access. That was already there.
Okay.
And then the addition of Champlain Valley, those institutions that he added, I think that's a good thing to do.
And should it say and others or partner with, I mean, do we want to limit it to just those four or is it partner where we can?
Something with the story.
We can say and others. I don't know that this is a comprehensive list.
I mean, I'm new to all of this, so I don't know what the others are, but I don't want to leave out potentials.
Well, there's also the Champlain Valley.
I don't think we need to list every single organization.
No, that's why I was saying, that's why I was saying and others.
So they added and others. Does that seem others?
Perfect.
Okay, next one is in recreation.
We have that already.
Oh, yeah, I think we already adopted this next.
It's done.
Yep, I think that's,
The next one is about regional emergency management committee, which is fine, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
What I have is the last one. I think Dan has got an old version of the text because
Yeah.
that's not correct.
well, that's the one everybody had.
No, I
at the
agree.
time.
This is the one that was warned for public hearing back in July. That's what he's
This is the
working on.
old one.
For public comment in July.
Well, then we should be comparing this with the new one.
We are, that's what we're doing right now.
So that small scale commercial is already in there? His last change?
No, I don't think it is.
This is emergency planning.
Regional Emergency Planning Committee.
Okay, that one's in there. Okay, then the next one was,
Management Committee. So you're correct on that?
Regional emergency management. As he is the staff person, or his office is the staff person to it, then I presume that they're correct.
Principally conservation space.
Instead of plan.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, what's next?
it's the,
Small scale commercial.
in principally conservation and open space goals.
So I think this is a distinction where he maybe, when you had a discussion with him, this is the land use type that is the green, where mostly it's parks, NRP, habitat block, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so where you inserted the small scale commercial was into the yellow, which is the historically lower in scale neighborhoods. Where you said we should put small scale commercial. The principally conservation and open space is the area that you've labeled as green, which is generally speaking, no development with some limited exceptions like the house on the Eau Claire farm kind of thing.
But aren't they farms? And I think the
That's
point
agricultural.
is that agricultural land, I mean, pretty much every farm has a farm stand.
That's agriculture.
And is
Farm
that not
stands are
considered
agriculture.
small? But aren't
You
you
wanted to
limited,
call it
aren't you
value
limited to
added.
what you can sell if it's called?
Yes, so you could say, there's a term for it. It's actually protected under state law that people can do some level
Value
of it.
added product, that one?
Yeah, is that the one? There's a term in
I feel like
statute.
Farm stands all in agricultural processing all falls under agriculture.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want someone to be confused and think we want like a store, like a non-farm
Maple
store.
Maple
Yeah.
Fields gas station.
Yeah, in this very green area.
It just died.
Or you can say related,
Hang on.
agricultural related.
Your thing might be out.
It's greenhouse.
Say agricultural and related
It
commercial.
is charging, mine's charging.
No, it's gone. Kaput.
Because it was like, knowing a few farmers.
Paul's
And-
getting the language for us.
And they sometimes end up with kind of very awkward problems because they're not allowed to do something that is, oh, here's a good one. Farm stay B&Bs. It's like, it's this weird thing that if you have, if your land is listed with a land trust, agritourism. If your farm is preserved by land trust, you are not allowed to do agritourism, which seems pretty convoluted thinking.
That depends on the conservation easement. That's not across the board.
Yeah, I
What's
know
the land trust
somebody,
conservation easements.
I know
That's a
somebody who has
condition.
one, who has two actually on a conserved farm. So it depends on the language.
A conservation easement is effectively a contract and a transfer of property rights, so they're all different
They're all different. Oh,
from each
okay.
other. Even if it's all VLT or it's all whoever, like each one
Each one is written.
is negotiated
But you have
differently
to negotiate for
Yeah.
that ahead of time.
as part of the, because you're being paid to restrict your use of the land. So it's what are you being paid for, what are you restricting? It's that kind of contract.
Farm store, to allow a
Yeah.
farm store.
Farm store is agriculture, pretty clearly.
Yeah, as long as we're allowed to have farm stores.
So I think we're saying that the small scale commercial is a problem.
It doesn't belong.
We shouldn't do it.
Yep.
And if Paul finds the appropriate language for value added agriculture, whatever I know they were trying to deal with it at the Nordic farm when that was being
Right,
changed
right.
to allow appropriate broadness to let them really do,
Yeah, they were trying to scale it up
yeah.
more than some Shelburne probably wanted them to. or something.
So farming has a lot of things included in it. Lots and lots and lots. Cultivation of various crops, livestock, greenhouses, maple syrup, on-site storage, preparation, and sale of agricultural products principally produced on the farm, on-site storage, preparation, production, and sale of fuel or power from agricultural products or waste, raising or feeding of horses, food processing,
Pretty specific,
compost.
okay. What about alpacas?
Alpacas are livestock.
I'm comfortable to move on if we let
Yeah.
Paul find language.
Paul's gonna find
As long as
language.
there's, yeah.
Yeah.
And related.
So then we're on to the red and black comments,
Which
which,
is Michael.
so the first one starts out on page 4 and 5 about carrying capacity.
Yep.
Adding some language.
So I'd originally just had some sort of boilerplate language, but then I realized that it's that there's a requirement under the statute. And I thought it best to then refer to that. So that's why the language includes as required under 24 VSA 34302P3, which you can read right there. And that implies that we have to take into account the use of resources, and those resources mean just about anything you can think of, whether it be water or sewer or land, available land or food production or so we do have, or every community has some limited which overcrowding or traffic congestion or whatever reaches a level where it becomes a burden for the community. And that's what I would say is carrying capacity. So I'd like us to adopt that language and put it in there where I'm suggesting it.
Thoughts on that, or?
I would disagree with that. I think carrying capacity, first of all, I actually went and found the statute. You pulled that out of. It's a very long statute.
Oh, yeah.
But you could also take that sentence. Think about if you're somebody from Southern Vermont. And somebody says, hey, they're going to limit housing in South Burlington. South Burlington's in the core of Chittenden County. We should look at the whole picture and say, South Burlington should have more housing, not less housing. So you could take that statement and look at it two different ways. It could be interpreted completely different from the way you look at it in terms of consequences of growth and development for the region and the state.
And the community.
Yeah, and the community. But I guess my feeling, Michael, is carrying capacity is something I think the community has to decide on its own. I don't know that it needs
Well,
to
I'm
be
not,
dictated.
there's no dictation of what the carrying capacity is. It just says that we need to have this in our planning basket, if you like. Because if we don't plan for it, we're going to be
Well, we're planning
overrun.
for what, 1.5% growth a year. That's what the comp plan, and that's what I think the city plan calls for.
Well, it may not be appropriate once we understand what our actual carrying capacity is, which I'm not dictating. I'm not suggesting that we're there, although in some cases we are. We're over capacity for schools.
I mean, that could be changed, but investment in new schools.
So,
Do you, yeah, I guess that's actually a really interesting point, Duncan, because, the carrying capacity could change over time depending on our kind of investments. Like if we provide appropriate infill in areas that aren't creating more traffic, I think you could have more people and more housing, but not
cause these problems.
cause problems with the carrying capacity and quality of life. So I think, I guess what I'm seeing with this statement, it isn't saying no more housing, no more people. It feels like it's saying, as we're making changes, we want to make sure we're making them.
We'll make sure we're not
to make sure
overburdening
it
ourselves.
fits in a way that makes sense. Is that?
I don't think
But
we
I
want
don't
to
know
use the
that-
word carrying capacity
The
though,
reason-
because there's a definition issue there. Because I think most people would say the carrying capacity of any region is based on its availability of land, water, clean air, food. It's like, those are all,
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
well, infrastructure is something you can improve.
Well, I was gonna say,
The
one,
carrying capacity has to do with inherently, like if you have no water, as many places in Arizona do not have water, I think you can argue that they have reached their carrying capacity because they have no water. You can build schools, you can build sewers, you can extend water, treatment. All those things are things you can actually build, you can do something about, and so you're limiting you don't want to artificially limit your carrying capacity, which I think is what you're talking about. Schools, you're saying, well, we don't want to add to our schools, so let's limit the number of housing. And I don't think you can do that.
I don't see that as being what this says. And what I see this saying, which I think is important, is as we develop, we need to look at our infrastructure and the carrying capacity that we have. And if a development that's being proposed is going to put so many cars, and I know people do traffic studies, et cetera, but Dorset Street at 4 o'clock right now is all but unnavigable at times. And this is just saying, if we're looking at the carrying capacity of our city, whether it's transportation or whether it's water or sewer or schools, put this in the mix when we're looking at the development projects to make sure that that carrying capacity is in place. And I don't know whether impact fees at this point take care of that problem.
Lori, are you, the term that comes to my head when you're hearing what you're saying is like a level of service.
Ability to serve.
Ability to serve
Ability to
more
serve.
than a carrying capacity.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you describe the traffic, the current project, as a for instance, is intended to streamline, you know, the light sequencing substantially. And the bike ped bridge over the interstate is supposed to take some portion of vehicle trips and make them a trip that somebody doesn't have to go in a car. So there's ways of managing the, Donna, you just used a great word.
Ability to serve.
The ability to serve the, it's not necessarily.
Capacity to serve.
Capacity implies a maximum limit versus a level of service suggests, or ability to serve is suggesting can be adjusted.
So Michael, are you talking about this to limit growth? Or are you talking about this so that this is, the lens is on this so that we make sure that things are in balance?
Management tool, if you like. But for example, some people say you reach your carrying capacity when the property tax burden becomes untenable for the residents. I looked at a lot of definitions and discarded most of them. One of them was when a population of a town or a city reaches a point where it begins to degrade the natural resources, that's where you are. You're at your carrying capacity. I didn't like that. I wanted something that was more focused on us and our problems that we might face with if we build over every piece of land that we've got. We just have to be careful about what we're doing and how we plan the future. And that's what I'm after.
Would you be comfortable with capacity to, or what was the phrase?
Ability to serve.
Ability to serve instead of carrying capacity? So that we're looking at the,
Or maybe the
Well,
word
the last sentence
resources.
is pretty much says that.
So basically, because you're right, it says almost that exactly. Could we say cities, and instead of the words carrying capacity, maybe say something like resources and its ability to provide the facilities, or like some kind of word that's maybe doesn't have a specific.
Resource capacity?
Maybe resources isn't the right word, because that might indicate natural.
I hate to say this, guys, but I'm not comfortable with that entire second paragraph.
I'm not comfortable with how
Which
it
one?
can be interpreted.
Yeah, to me, that looks like an explicit anti-growth statement. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh, that's your interpretation of it. That's
I
not.
just
I don't
don't
think
like-
I'd be alone in that interpretation.
I definitely don't like the words carrying capacity, because I think a lot of
Mhm.
people have other particular notions of exactly what that would mean.
Well, and the other issue I have, Michael, is I'm not sure that all that stuff, we would have the facts to back it all up on some of that stuff. You know, increasing tax burdens, yeah, I get the tax bill every year, it goes up a little bit, but it hasn't been
Yeah.
exonerate.
is therefore essential to
Right,
consider.
Well, resident expectation.
Here, okay, one at a time. Paul Ingalls had his hand up.
My thought on this, I mean, the way I read it is that we are, I mean, to me, this is what we should be doing as planning commissioners. This is like looking into the future and saying, you know, what can we reasonably expect is going to happen and how can we plan for it? I mean, to me, that's what it is. That's the way it's not I don't see it as a cap on housing or anything like that. It's, you know, what can we reasonably expect is going to be the ability of our city to, I guess the word I like better than any word, it's the old song, of course, sustainability. You know, I mean, what can the city, what can we reasonably sustain as a city, given the resources we have and the resources that we can develop. I mean, this is not saying, you know, housing has got to stop. It's saying schools have to be built, you know, sewers have to be built, water has to be maintained. I mean, you know, it's not denying growth. It's responding to what we know to be future growth. I mean, this kind of growth has been happening in the city for a long time. I mean, since I've been involved with the city, it's grown at 1 or 2% a year for the last 10 or 15 years. So it's really reasonable to expect that the city's going to grow 1.5%, which is, 15% 10 years from now, next census. So what do we need for schools? And how many kids are there going to be? So
I hear what you're saying, Paul, and actually, I don't have a problem with your language. I'm sorry to you, Michael, but I just don't like the way it was phrased in that paragraph.
Would it work for you if it said sustainability instead of carrying capacity?
Paul's comments had a much more positive spin to it.
Yeah, I would.
This is kind of negative.
Yeah, it's very
It's got a negative connotations to it.
Is there a way to put a positive spin on it? Because I think that
Could you cut the second red sentence,
Which one?
the second one? After the quote from the statute and
Yeah.
before it is therefore essential, just take all the negative and all the sort of assumptions of fact, lift it
Out.
out.
yeah,
Does that help?
and
Or
then
not help?
I have to, I'm sorry. I have to see it.
Yeah, get rid of this, our city school.
And does it-
I just also want to point out in the text already, we have, this is in the population section, we have both this goal, number 1, which is the statement of anticipating and preparing for this amount of population growth, which I think is part of what Paul Engels was saying about like, this is your role as planning commissioners, is anticipating and preparing for this amount of population growth. And the second is we already have action number 3, study the population carrying capacity of our city to maintain a high quality of life, included as an action under population. To be consistent with both of those statements, and to be factually accurate as much as possible. I don't think that second sentence helps anything. The first is a selection, acknowledged, that's a selection from the statute, which can either be expanded to include more of the statute as
Well, I have.
adding nuance, or could be paraphrased.
Well, the statute has
And-
even more impressive things in it that I left out because I didn't want to make it so long.
And then editing the third sentence to remove the phrase
carrying capacity.
carrying capacity.
Does sustainability
Well,
work?
in which
there?
case, isn't that what you have right there in
Right.
action 3? I think from my perspective for you, I think limits of also implies that there is a cap.
Yeah, that I'm not.
As opposed to, there are ways to reallocate the resources. I would also keep in mind from the natural resources perspective, you also have objectives and actions to have X amount of of acres of open space per 1,000 population and a park space per 1,000 population. So you do have other objectives in this plan that connect back to a quality of life from that perspective.
I don't mind leaving out the middle. But I think some years ago, when I was wanting to join this August group, I did a little bit of reading, and it's the responsibility of a planning commission to see to the health and well-being of the community it serves. And that's what sort of drives me to look at this, because we can affect our, in short, quality of life, but health and well-being is.
I guess my response would be that, yes, that's outlined in statute, but there's a heck of a lot more outlined in statute, and also
No,
that.
I know,
But that goal is
Kelsey, I'd never seen the statute when
I understand. I'm
Wrote that
saying
down.
the entire plan, the entire city government's mandate is to
Yeah.
do what you're saying. The entire plan is making all of the detailed statements to do what you're saying. It's not including
Yeah.
anticipating and preparing for population growth. It's with the high likelihood of misinterpretation of a carrying capacity statement like this, I think the rest of the document speaks for itself and says all the things that you want to do to improve and support quality of life for residents of South Burlington without having to say it in a way that could be spun the wrong way. That's just my reading of it.
I don't think it does any harm to have an affirmative statement, but it has to be an affirmative statement.
I would be more comfortable with
Yeah,
some
we
of the
agree with
language that Paul proposed.
So if this kept the first sentence, lost everything in the middle, and the last sentence said, it is therefore essential to consider our city's,
Capacity too.
I think he said sustainability.
I was to consider our city's sustainability and its ability to provide the facilities, et cetera. So leave out the limits and put in sustainability.
Michael, can I just ask where exactly you were? It says on page 4 between 4 and 5, but the
Well,
pages
now-
have
it's
changed.
now on page 5 of the one that we've got in front of us.
Michael's thing is in the document you sent out today, Michael's.
I know, but that's the comments I'm looking at in front of me, but I'm trying to put it into the plan itself,
This
which
is
is not.
page 4 between paragraphs.
No,
There's
it's
a
now,
lot
it's now page 5.
Yep,
Page
what's
5,
the
it's
paragraph
right there.
before it start with?
I can't because I
okay.
can't see because my computer died, but it's between the 6th and 7th paragraph on page 5. No, it's charging, Paul. It's just gone dead.
Well, also
I
your
believe
questions.
I put a new battery in it recently and I think it's a done.
Is yours charging still?
Mine's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's charged, it
It
shows
is
that it's
charging.
plugged in.
Yes.
Okay, so that's working. Okay, that's the only thing I was checking.
Is it here?
Yeah, I think that
Yep.
might be it. Yeah,
That's the right
because
place?
the last, that next paragraph,
Yep.
the wrap up paragraph.
Right there.
And if it's the first sentence and the last sentence,
I would not start with the citation, but that's just my own.
Yeah.
How about, could we start with one of the things Paul said is that our city needs to understand what to expect and how we plan for it. For the future, yeah, the future.
I was like, I gotta put it, I need a noun.
You did say the future, I just didn't
Hold on,
write it
Kelsey.
down.
Why don't we just do what Lori suggested, which is cut out the middle sentence with all the things
Well,
that.
hang on.
Yeah,
Paul-
yeah,
Paul
yeah.
was minutes describing.
Paul was describing something.
Me, right now? No.
We were going to describe it.
It? No, it is the future.
Well, you had the word sustainability that you wanted to put in there.
Well,
Paul.
sustainability, I thought it's a good word.
Oh, yeah, and
I
then,
usually am not in favor of that word, but under these circumstances, it seems appropriate.
okay, that's a real good one. And then maybe now there's the citation.
Hmm,
It is.
24 via city.
Why would I use this?
Just copy that in full sentence.
There's so many grave realities as far as this is concerned. The schools are at capacity now, and we're expecting 4,000 more people by 2030. You all know pretty much how many kids are going to be in population of 4,000, right? Tim?
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. And that's part of the school also has a demographer review it at least every 2 years to see where things are projected. They've got a very good read on 5 years out because they know who's been born.
Yeah.
So they know who's coming.
Right.
You
Those
have
are-
5 years
those are
lead
facts.
time.
Big kindergarten class.
Right.
Okay,
Whoops.
and then I think the last paragraph or the last sentence was,
I think it is therefore essential to consider the sustainability of
Consider our city's sustainability
and its ability
and
to.
its ability to provide.
I already said this.
It's essential to consider.
the city's sustainability.
And its ability to provide facilities, da, 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 da.
Services or facilities?
It says both.
Facilities and services which
Yeah,
meet the residents' expectations.
And meet our communities.
And
Uh, Maintain.
Maintain our community's quality of life.
It's a bit of a butcher job. I'm okay with it.
How do you feel about this? You okay with it?
Hmm?
You okay with this?
Hey,
No,
yes,
no.
That was,
no.
it was a nice script buffer.
yes,
Does it work for you?
yes.
Good.
It's not ideal, but it works for me.
Well,
Okay.
what's the idea?
I
That was
personally
time.
thought the
Like-
words carrying capacity were important because on a worldwide basis, as to quote an economist, we have to live within the means of the planet and we have to live within the means of our city.
But I think those are a few different definitions of carrying capacity.
There are
that are
many.
Inflated. The only other thing that I just want to just raise is that the residents of the city vote on how much they're paying for services every year.
Yeah.
And what they're voting on is what level of service they want. So there's basic, road paving and, serve certain services that are required, running elections, things like that. But, the city of South Burlington is not required to run a high quality public library. We're not required to have a professional fire department. There are things that the residents of the city can choose to pay for and choose to pay more on their property taxes to have that level of service. It's not necessarily each new resident puts up it's not like each new resident comes in and the city has no recourse to preventing any change to the property taxes. You could decide to have fewer services or whatever it is. So it's a combination of additional of many things, including what the residents are expecting for extras.
I rarely hear people complain about the municipal tax. I hear them complaining about the school tax or the combination of the two.
Mhm.
When some person who was paying $2,500 15 years ago is now paying 5 or 6, they see it as a hardship.
And the tone that this sets the tone for the city, which sets the tone for people coming in. I mean, I remember one of the people that was at the listening sessions was talking about the importance of having this talk about the importance of high quality education. And when he was looking to move to South Burlington, that was key to him.
Mhm.
And he was missing that in this plan. So the way the plan reads impacts who's here and what they're willing to support. And it's sort of,
Yeah, and it's all involved in just to, not to harp on the point anymore, but the school has their own planning process and some of the, what the school tax is or what their investments are in infrastructure, like that's
there.
on them. So,
Okay.
So
what's
let's,
the next thing?
it's on page 23. It's about some residential within the commercial areas.
It's now page 24.
Okay, 24.
Is that just? No, it's not.
What do we have? The-
Can I say how about just say some residential use instead of some kind of?
That's fine. I've just used some of the words that were there.
You just say and add some residential to it because
So this is, what section are we in? This is a little bit hard for me to follow.
It's on page 24 of the current package.
It's in housing. Oh, no, it's in economy.
It's that paragraph.
No, I know, but what's the context in the plan of where that is? It's in the economic.
Mhm.
Land use and economy.
It is in economy in a paragraph. It's preceded by a paragraph about more housing units in commercial areas and what that could do. Further discussion is in the housing section. And then this paragraph says currently some areas that may have capacity for some kind of residential use in primary commercial areas include. Already says that.
And you're reading Michael's edit.
No.
Oh, no, it's already-
My bits are in red and it should be including
So,
technology park.
So you're saying
I
it's
just
already in
added-
there?
so where it says some kind of residential, it already says that and you're okay with it saying that, or did you want that deleted?
I don't know. I'm okay with residential. It doesn't have to be some kind. It can be some residential.
Some kind of residential is already in there. So it's good to go.
I didn't put that in there. I only put in what's red.
Right, but
What are we
what's
doing
red is
here?
in there already, is what we're saying.
Yeah, no, the rest of the red. He wants to add Meadowlands Business Park to the list.
And I want to add commercial and industrial.
Commercial and industrial.
It says commercial,
Yeah.
it says and industrial.
Oh, yeah, commercial and
Oh, okay.
industrial.
It wasn't clear that second paragraph was, all right.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I guess the
Yeah.
second
We-
paragraph is the mark.
So it's including.
Okay,
That's it. So it is-
Yeah, no, I
Industrial.
didn't even look at that. All right.
Right here,
yeah.
It wasn't in red, so I didn't look at it like.
after this word.
All right.
Good.
It's on page 24.
That is a fairly significant policy statement to be stating that the future of Meadowlands Business Park is to have residential. That is not something that we have included in whole cloth in the maps. We sort of divided Meadowlands into sort of a front half and a back half. The front half fronting on Heinsberg Road does show as purple with some ability for mixed use development in a principally commercial area, but the back half closer to the gravel pit is not.
Aren't we aspiring, I mean, in our discussions that we've had to try to have housing in these areas?
Not the whole area. That's what I'm saying. Meadowlands Business Park is technically sort of from Heinsberg Road to the boundary with Williston. And it's sort of the Heinsberg Road side front section that you've shown in purple on your map, on the future land use map, but the back half is not. It's blue.
Because I think one of the things we talked about was the need to continue to have like real industrial area where they could have
Noisy, stinky,
noise.
messy, whatever.
Yeah.
That's already in here, in the plan.
Right, so I think what we're saying is that if we add the word industrial a bunch in this paragraph, it might be sending the wrong message.
I think Jessica's right. It's more, my understanding of the direction we were given by the commission earlier is that the front part of Meadowlands Business Park, where you've identified could have some mixed residential, would be commercial, where then industrial would be separated as two different things. So like commercial is compatible. A lot of commercial uses are compatible with housing. Many industrial are not.
Could
Well,
we
and
say-
many commercial uses have popped up in the last couple of decades in industrial areas.
Mhm.
I think we're trying to draw a little bit of a stronger distinction that for the most part, Tech Park, Tilly Drive are more commercial than they are industrial places. And so that's sort of the distinction of why the purple is in those areas, whereas, behind the airport in the Ethan Allen Industrial Park or along Gregory Drive right under the flight path of the airplanes or at the east end of Meadowland, those, we were recommending that those areas be really allowing for businesses that don't do well with housing.
So is
Could
there a
we
way to,
say the west side of Meadowlands Business
is
Park?
it- or just a way to reference the map, which talks about the purple and the blue?
Mhm.
And say within, or the pink and the blue.
Maybe.
Within the pink parts of the industrial.
Or
So,
leave it unchanged. I mean, if there's a problem with, I didn't say where in the Meadowlands. It's like, I had a client who was told your defect rate's going to be between 5 and 10. And he said, it's not 10. You have to take your machine back.
Mhm.
It took a lot of argument to persuade him that 7 actually is between 5 and 10. So it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying where in the Meadowlands, but I'm not married. I'm not committed to this. I'm not wedded to this. Just thought it would be logical.
What about just being a little more inclusive and just saying includes but is not limited to?
So to say some areas that may have, there's a lot of hedging.
it does start by saying may have capacity.
Some areas
Yeah,
Some
May have
areas
capacity.
may have capacity for some kind of residential use. There's a lot of,
and we've indicated between the pink or the blue and the purple, however you want to call it, where we're allowing it.
Okay, so it sounds
So the
like
map
no
really
change.
covers it.
We can leave that as
Not
is.
important.
okay.
All right.
Yep, no
There's other
change.
things that are more important.
Okay, page 25, which is probably more like the next page.
That's now page 26.
Okay, so it's right after it says $400,000. If you scroll down.
Just add the word affordable to housing.
Find it first.
400.
No, that's me.
I was like, I don't think I have.
Oh, that's not in there?
There's
Okay.
no 400,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Employers are struggling to attract workers to our region.
Yeah.
Is where,
It's in the middle of
yes,
paragraph.
we want to write the word.
And I had
afford-
highlighted it, but my computer's gone dead.
That.
Do we let me just
You good?
add the word affordable there?
Add the word affordable,
That's it.
okay?
Yep.
Page
No, that's not
72.
where it is. Are we-
Was that-
Yes.
Okay, 72. This is
That's done.
about,
That's already done.
oh, we already did this. Okay, then we're done.
No, I have one more on page 16.
You're out.
What? 16?
Yeah,
Oh,
Is this from today's email, Michael?
it's today.
All right.
oh, I was
Everybody,
in the field all day. I missed it.
It's
Vacancy
the
rate.
two goals. The 5% vacancy rate and the, where is it? And the 1,000. I think it
I'll bring
would,
it up on the screen, Michael,
I
so
found
everybody
it.
can see it.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
it's the housing goals 2 and 3. Yeah,
Oh, I don't know.
I'm
How are you gonna increase vacancy rate?
suggesting that we shouldn't use a specific number, such a particular number, and be more general. And so in the first instance for goal 2, I would suggest increased number of affordable housing units, including those affordable to households earning up to 80% of AMI and consistent with the goals of the climate action plan. And for goal number 3, increase vacancy rate to reduce pressure on rental housing. Rather than,
Can I just ask this question? Did the Affordable Housing Committee
Yes.
ask for those metrics in there? Or they advocated for them?
They advocated for those metrics. We've also, as staff, been advocating for more measurable things instead of just increase a bit or increase the rate to some amount, having some more benchmark numbers included. The 1,000 units is somewhat based on the previous goal. I mean, it's very similar to the previous goal. That was also included in the 16 plan.
It's a very ambitious goal,
Both
just to
are.
be clear. On the other hand, so is everything in the climate action plan.
Yeah.
Is that
They're
in the
equal.
climate action plan?
No, I just mean the climate action plan, all of the targets in it are very ambitious. This is also very ambitious.
Is it
We
too
can
ambitious?
I have a comment on this one.
Okay.
5% is really ambitious. We, right now, our vacancy rate is below 1% in Chittenden County. And I assume it's that in South Burlington as well. So,
Somewhere in the neighborhood, I don't know the exact number.
so
but
going
yeah.
from 1% to 5% is a huge change in our situation. And while I would like to see us aspire to that, putting that in writing could create a situation where there is pushback that we have to do this development because we have to reach that 5% when the development is something that doesn't make sense for the city. If it says we are trying to reduce or increase our vacancy rate to reduce the pressure on the rental market, it provides some flexibility. Nationally, the vacancy rate is over 7%. So some could say, well, 5% is low, but for us to get from 1 to 5, I think is beyond what Paul is saying is a steep goal. It's a very steep goal.
also by
Fran?
note number 2, which is up on the board now, that, it could lead to an unmanageable or uncontrollable cycle of building in order to stay with the 5%, to keep the 5% vacancy rate. Okay, we need to build more to do that because we build, the vacancy rate goes down.
Frank?
Well, it is hard to reach the 5% because almost all the houses that are built are being sold or occupied. And so we're not creating vacancy, we're just creating more
Filling demand.
population. And I don't know how you would catch up right now.
Right.
I mean, we can put the goal in there, but I guess,
We can strive to do it,
yeah, it's gonna.
but not, I don't think we
with the
should put in
current
the
market, It's
5%.
hard to reach.
You can take over all the second homes and Airbnb, so.
Yeah, okay, can
Well,
we
do
put
they
that in?
count for vacancy? They don't count for vacancy. That's the thing. Like, somebody doesn't want an empty house, they'd rather have an Airbnb.
this would be
Was the 5% something the Affordable Housing Committee
Yes,
asked for? Okay.
5 in particular.
yes.
Paul, what were you saying?
I meant something like, what is that when they want to build a road and people's houses are in the way and they,
Eminent domain.
yeah, eminent domain for Airbnbs and second homes. So the problem is in it.
So,
It sounds like.
I don't, the 1,000 and 750, fine, but then we should say it's consistent with the goals of the action plan, of the climate action plan, but leave the rest as it is. As far as the 5% is concerned, I don't think we should have that number in there. I think what was just repeated, increased vacancy rate to reduce the pressure on the rental market or rental housing market tells the story that we want to tell.
No, it's more up to the staff, I think, than us. Do you want 5% like that?
I think it is consistent with many other goals in the text of the plan that are extremely aspirational to the same level. Like, we're not saying 9% that's above the national average or something. It's something that is aspirational. It is something that has some pretty good data on, like, that's how you get to affordable rentals, is having a certain amount. It's supply and demand. Like, if you have people, if you have more units available for people to choose from, then they can choose a less expensive one and the prices end up going down or being stabilized. I would say it's not out of step with the rest of the plan and the level of aspiration that it has. And I would say that it is not necessarily, it does not override all of the other regulations that we have on development and building in the LDRs. It would, this statement doesn't mean like, oh, so all the LDRs should be thrown out the window and development at any density and any height should go everywhere to get to this number. You still have a lot, you have 350 something pages of protections that.
Which hopefully we can reduce.
But
That's a different project.
let's say I'm a developer and I come to you and for the council and say, I want to build another 5,000 houses in order to get to that number.
You can, it doesn't say anything about how to get to that number. If you say, I bought 400 acres in the southeast quadrant and I want to build single family homes, 1,000 single family homes, that way, this doesn't say that anything that the city has to let you do that. It could be, you can't do that because we also require you to do it in a different way, require smaller lots, we require multifamily, we require access to transit and, focusing on our downtown area. There's a
But
lot
it's a
of.
goal. It's a goal that.
Sure.
But
All of these are things are goals.
I will say, if that goal was reached through everything that we've put in this plan to have infill and high density in these places, et cetera, and we hit that goal,
Well, that's good.
boom.
Well, good.
So what I hear Kelsey saying is that we get this plan together, we focus on our LDRs and make sure that they allow development the way we want to see this city develop.
Correct.
Having that goal as aspirational is not a.
So for example, just to use our neighbors as one case study in this, the city of Burlington has been working a lot with the University of Vermont to have the University of Vermont maintain its student population and build on-campus housing specifically to do that.
Yes.
To open up some of the existing housing stock and to build that, in thoughtful ways. So, because they, like us, have such a tiny vacancy rate that they're finding affordability went through roof and quality of housing dropping because as for the other one, I don't know that we have an opinion too much on the climate change added words from Michael, other than to say that should be the rubric as directed by you for all of things. And so having it in one implies that
It's not.
it's
It's
maybe
not
not
everywhere else.
in the others. That would be my only
Repeating
concern,
it.
but this is your choice.
Yeah, well, repeating it doesn't do any harm, I suppose.
But you'd have to repeat it in the point is you'd have to repeat it in every goal throughout the plan if you wanted to have that weight.
Because
Otherwise,
it-
you're saying it's more important in goal 2 than in goal 5 or goal 27.
I think because we've already said that everything has to follow in accordance with the climate action plan, that's the default position for every one of these things.
Leave as is.
Sure. So I think we're done with Michael's. On to Laurie's.
Beg your pardon?
Are we on to Laurie's comments?
Okay.
They start with the airport rezoning task force report.
So I'm going to start by apologizing to Duncan. Because Duncan last week asked for people to provide language, and I did not provide language. And I didn't because I'm new to the commission, I'm new to the airport task force stuff. There are 5 paragraphs, which I have up if nobody else has them handy. They're handy. They've been submitted by at least a half a dozen people. And the question is, what, if any, if not all of those paragraphs, do we want to add? And it struck me that there's a good argument for adding at least some of that language. So
I think we did add a bunch of it after that.
well, this was just last week that it was brought up.
Well, it got
No,
brought
it's the
up after
same.
that guy didn't listen to our deliberations before.
It's
so-
the same language that was brought up before your August 8th meeting.
Did we add, so here's my
Bring up that
black
section.
memory.
It was like 3 pages.
Yeah.
Page
so
91,
we,
92.
We did add a
Airport
bunch
rezoning.
after we got all those comments, and I think
Okay.
that person who came and
Hadn't read what we did.
hadn't seen the revisions because he was saying kind of the same thing
Okay. So
about those.
my mind gets quite vacant at times, so I
No,
don't
it's
remember.
okay.
So I think Kelsey's going to bring up the airport interface section. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
so. I don't know if you want to read it out loud or?
Yeah, it's not, no, it's
Yeah.
not word for word because,
As long as we have enough of it.
but we had added a bunch more.
We had comments from Ashley Adams from.
And I know Paul is much more in tune with this than I am, so I was just wanting to make sure that we covered our bases on it.
From Isaac Bessel and from Jimmy Lees. I think that was the comments, right?
Yeah, I think, and then we had added more into this section following those comments.
I'm looking at the track changes versions
Yeah, I
of
thought.
what you had done. There's a couple of different iterations of track changes. Okay, I will screen share here. Oop, that is the snipping tool.
Yeah, because it was confusing because we had gotten the comments about the 5 paragraphs and then we made changes and then
And
we
then-
warned another version.
That's right.
And then I think that the person who had come and
Hadn't read.
talked the most about it had,
Steve Trono.
yeah, I think Stu Turner hadn't seen the revised language.
So this is.
It is currently on page 93, sort of in the middle, starting with currently.
Well, this is what you added at your August 8th meeting. So following the version published for public comment.
Can you make it bigger? Can you bigger?
Try.
My children used to say.
I encouraged them all to submit stuff, but then I was absent from all the public hearings in the summer.
Okay.
From
Thanks.
last week's
I did
public
one
hearings.
more, hang on.
They had,
There we go.
we can update you with last week's comment.
I mean, I think that covers a lot of what you were concerned about, Lori. I mean, is there anything there that's not?
Just let me quickly look at what I have right here. They had expressly preventing any further expansion of airport, commercial, and/or industrial use towards the Champlain neighborhood is the most certain regulatory action the city can take at this time to avoid further airport-related impacts on quality of life of the neighborhood.
I think that the last sentence is key there, that it will allow residents to shape the community vision for this area as it integrates with the existing neighborhood, the airport and the northwest area as a whole. That tells them that they have
A say.
Yeah.
Okay.
the major stakeholder.
And then the goals, I think, so I think this is the text, which is for the most part kind of background stuff. And then it really comes into the goals and actions, which, because there's also additional background stuff here that's up further that had been in there originally. So that paragraph we just read was the stuff we added after the summer comments.
I just was sensitive to what was said last week.
Yeah, and then,
So that third bullet, which is now action 148,
Holistically, yep.
is, and the 146 and 148, which are the first and third, are the sort of action versions of that language
Okay,
below.
then I'm all set with that. 43, page 43. Noise pollution. I just thought that there was a very good comment that was raised, which is that that is a very, very short paragraph. It says nothing about airport or F-35 noise. I know the F-35 is a federal issue, not a community issue, but having been involved in a noise struggle for 4 years, noise pollution is a really big issue, and do we have enough written there? Do we need to expand?
So just to note, there's this noise pollution section. It's also written here as part of the environmental justice part, which brings in the equity and inclusiveness a little bit more. And then if you go back up to, I'm just pointing out where things are, just so everybody has a, no, I'm not going to be able to find it, am I?
Yeah, wasn't
Air
it,
braking, big trucks,
there was a whole other section about it. We had,
There's an action about noise pollution.
Yeah, it's a big problem for people near the highway.
Yep. So those are the two bits that were added at one point in response to public comment. Actually, both were added. And then that's the action that's written generally, but
Didn't we somewhere say that we should write a noise pollution ordinance?
yeah,
Yeah, 51.
action.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta go.
yeah, so we had, I think it's not specific to the source.
Right.
So I think, obviously the airport is one source, like the highways are
I
a
was just
source.
mentioning air braking.
Air braking.
A lot of that.
I think there's a lot of different sources, so I mean, we could add sources we can think of off the top of our
I
head.
think rather than doing that, I think I had forgotten about the section having the ordinance. I think having a focus on developing a good sound ordinance for our city will cover all of that.
Okay.
I agree. So I'm happy to let that one go. We were just at page 88, I think, the action 148.
And that's the one we just talked about?
There was one we just
Okay,
talked
so we
about,
did
and There was just a request to reference the task force findings, and I don't know whether that would be appropriate to do.
I think that is in there. It was originally in there, so
Okay,
it wasn't an edit from July. We had put that in there like last winter,
okay.
and it actually has a few like quotes from it too.
Okay. And the next point is probably a very quick one, but I thought a really good point was raised, and it may have to do with wetlands. I don't know, but questioning why the Airport Drive connection to Airport Parkway in the map is not directly adjacent to the airport properties.
Two reasons for that, Lori. One is specifically, as you said, there is the headwaters of the Centennial Brook are there, so it scoots that way. Secondly, in where this is drawn matches exactly what the city council specifically told the airport they wanted in a 2016 letter of have the roadway at least 300 feet from the neighborhood. So we're going off a statement, and that was also supported by the planning commission. Of course, times evolve, but we're trying to hold actions.
Is it also because of the airport property has that little gag there that it would then go, if we did it along the property line, it would go through the airport property?
It would go through City of South Burlington property as well, which is the headwaters of the strait.
Owned by,
No, there's
owned by Burlington.
No,
No.
there's a piece that's owned by South Burlington.
there's a very clean path that could go, but there is the wetland there. And I didn't know if it stayed tight to the airport.
It also,
Yeah.
there's an existing crossing
Yeah.
over Centennial, the headwaters of Centennial
Yeah.
Brook. And so it's connecting back to that
To
instead
that,
of
yeah.
having another crossing
Okay,
and additional impervious in a
Okay.
different place.
done with that one. I think it's really interesting that we're sitting here tonight while in the DRB, they're discussing the Farrell property. And that very piece of land that is on our city map as being parked with 3 building lots on it. The comment that was made last week about adjusting the map so that the park is on the land that we actually have a potential of acquiring as opposed to land that's already developed made sense.
So what I can say because we can take these one at a time, what I can say, broadly speaking, the reason for the purpose of the comprehensive plan, we didn't show property lines so as to specifically not be saying which property is on or not.
Yes.
What I can also tell you is that in this specific instance, if one were to overlay the data with the property lines, it is entirely on the Farrell property.
Yes.
So it is not on other people's
It's not on other
property,
people.
even though that's their perception,
Yes.
because it's supposed to be a little bit unclear because it's a plan. When we get to
Yes.
the official map, it is a requirement that the city be very clear as to exactly which properties are in and not, but also to allay fears. If one looks at the deep GIS data, it is only on the Farrell
I
property.
think if you refer the Eastons to the official map, they probably will be satisfied. They should be.
It's the Farrell property.
Oh, yeah, that's right down in the.
Yeah.
Holmes Road.
And were we going to do anything about the proposed versus planned language on the map?
So we are recommending that they use proposed throughout.
Okay.
So we have looked at each of the maps, and some of them say proposed sidewalk or proposed path, and some of them say planned. Our recommendation is to use the word proposed because it
Very good.
represents a broader gamut of, it could be in engineering like the bike bridge over the interstate, or it could be an idea that has not been further examined.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I think the comment that was made about map 3 was really pertinent, that the shades of green are so close to one another that it's really hard to read the map.
Yep.
And if that, is that something that can
Yeah.
be,
We're already talking to our mapping people. We just weren't able to get it done for the meeting tonight. Literally, it would be something in the ballpark of what is currently the darkest green would be the middle green, and then
Yeah.
there would be another darker green, but all in the same sort of brightness range.
Along those lines, we took the opportunity to look at other things that could be made a little bit more clear. We were recommending, the term that we've used whenever we've talked about these maps of these quote unquote conserved land is land in a form of conservation, which I know is not as rolling off the tongue, but conserved land implies some level of permanence to it, that this is supposed to be a map showing there's something on it. It may not be conserved done. So
right,
we would like to recommend that we use the term land in a form with a form of conservation.
I don't know if that's much clearer.
I thought we were going to use that it was protected.
If you're, I mean, if you're comfortable that conserved land represents a gamut, then that's fine. We just want to make sure that you're not feeling.
Well, if people look at this map and say that means that everything there is conserved, it's already protected.
And that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Perpetuity.
Yeah,
No.
so,
I mean, some of it is the part that's third party conserved. Yes. Could an association in theory all get together and say, you know what, we could put 6 more homes on there. Let's apply to, if the rules allow us to develop, it's not necessarily 100% for
Is
sure.
there some way to differentiate between the two?
Well, that's
There's
kind of,
That's the 3 categories.
Okay, oh, okay, all right.
yeah.
But it's the header he's talking about. When it says, the header says conserved land.
Oh, okay. all right.
if you could just,
Also, we could just take that title
You
out.
just take it out.
We could
or you
just
could put
say,
parentheses, different levels of protection.
Maybe just take it out.
Take it out.
okay.
Yeah.
It's easy enough.
Take it out.
As mentioned before, at the previous meeting as well, we were also going to add, in response to some of the comments from last time, a disclaimer on the maps that have anything that's shown as proposed. Something along the lines of, and haven't sort of nailed the language yet from my perspective, but proposed something along in the realm of proposed facilities are shown in approximate locations for planning purposes only. Something like.
I'm taking your beach.
You can't take my beef.
I'm coming with stakes tomorrow. I'm bringing my surveyor's
So
tape.
something to that effect, proposed facilities are shown in approximate locations. Are you comfortable with something to that effect?
Yes.
We toyed with how do we make it fuzzier?
Then it
Some of
looked
the feedback that
crazy.
was provided, Paul, was that the proposed trails and things should suggest that they're in one specific place. They're already shown as being 100 and something feet wide if you were to measure them, which is obviously way wider than they could be. Anything that makes it more cartoony makes it illegible. So we thought something that's not written in 1-point font, but written in a larger side to say approximate locations.
Yeah.
The Eastmans don't like our use of the word fuzzy, do they?
No.
No, they were happy about fuzzy.
They don't. Like,
They weren't.
While we're here on this map, this is the proposed, what is this?
this is community facilities.
Community facilities map. There's a couple little other edits you asked us to scour for. So one is we use the word recreation path. Everywhere else in the plan, we use shared use path.
Mhm.
So correcting that.
And that's what DPW uses, is shared use
We're
path.
missing a couple of parks like the Goose Park over here. We also felt that this map is showing existing parks and it's showing intended future parkland, but it's missing a third category we realized this week, which is parks that are either approved or under construction or built, but have not become city parks yet. So in the Rye neighborhood, there's a little park. It's not a proposed park because it's already approved and it's already constructed. It's not an existing park because it hasn't been given to us. So there's one at Spear Meadows, one at
O'Brien.
Rye, and 2 or 3 at the
Hillside.
O'Brien that seemed like just a gap. So if you're okay, we'd like to put those in and give them a category of parks
In progress.
in
Something.
progress.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Parks ...
And I'll just make one more
Yep.
quick comment, which is being a rookie here. I apologize for repeating on things, but I just wanted to make sure bases were covered. So sorry for the extra time.
No, this has been good.
You're not a rookie though.
Not
Just
anymore.
happened to look at the terms of our service here. And you are a 4-year term ending, I think, in 2024. So you've been here since 2020, so
So there you go.
you're way past rookie.
One other edit that we noticed, just for consistency, not a policy change, but on the transportation map, it shows a bunch of existing parks just for sort of placement of where things are. It unintentionally showed the 2 proposed parks as being existing. So we didn't want to conflate maps. One is about proposed parks, this is about transportation,
You're
so
taking
we're
them out.
taking them off the one that shows what exists today. I think those were all of our
Those
map
are our map
edits.
things. Yep.
Before we move on,
Well, Lori had another one.
no,
You were talking about maps.
this is.
Oh, just the last one. We've already talked about it. And I just wanted to, just the issue about ADUs. And do we have clarification that ADUs are something that are being considered throughout the entire city?
You made that addition a few weeks ago, so.
Okay.
Then you also gave yourself room to add more by Tuesday.
It's
There may be
Tuesday.
other items by Tuesday.
That's right.
It's
I'm all
still
done.
Tuesday.
I'm all done.
Today's date.
Lori's done. Oh, I know we kind of sprung this on you and you'd missed last meeting. Did you have anything you wanted to circle back on?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
My concern was keeping up with the airport neighborhood, Chamberlain neighborhood, but, I missed all the public meetings, and so I kind of I'm really not up to date on it, so I have to trust in what all you have done. So, I noticed the one section on pets. This is pretty minuscule, but I wish we'd have some kind of affirmative thing to say about pet control in South Burlington. That all pets are supposed to be registered, cats and dogs, and that cats and dogs are not supposed to be wandering around the neighborhood, but something like that, But it's a pretty tiny little thing to put in.
Yeah, we added a few sentences in a few different places about pets and their role as, how they improve quality of life of our community members. But you're right, there isn't anything specifically about pet control.
Yeah,
It's more about pets in the lifestyle of some of our residents. I will say we did get a very happy email from Betty Malizia, the chair of our Common Areas for Dogs Committee, about the language that we did include. So she seems fairly satisfied. But again, the specific thing that you're talking about it is correct that it is not called out.
because the city clerk keeps track of the registrations.
Yep.
And it's surprising how few people register their dogs. I mean, it amazes me. I thought all dogs would be registered. It's like 40% or something like that.
It's a lot lower on cats.
Cats are supposed to be registered just like dogs and wear tags and the whole bit. And you never see a cat registered at all. I mean, the percentage of cats that are registered is tiny.
And the number of feral cats is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it kills
I
me.
can
that
understand why they
kills
weren't
me. It
registered
kills all.
though.
Yeah, I could see
Chipmunks.
I actually don't understand why indoor cats are registered though. Why they need to be, if they're not really.
Do we want to add something since we're having a big discussion, or are we okay to?
Isn't there a city ordinance about?
It is an
Yeah.
ordinance,
I
yeah.
just think we should point out that there's an ordinance. And, I don't, people are not obeying.
Where-
the ordinance at all.
Where would you want to put this?
There's a little section in pets, right?
There's sentences dropped in a few different places about dogs and dog owners and pets and pet owners. So there's not like a standalone.
And then there's the whole leash thing, and people don't understand the leash thing at all. There actually is not a leash law in South Burlington. Isn't that true? Do you know?
There's under command.
Yeah, command.
Voice control.
Yeah, voice control.
Whose impression? Whose impression of
My dog's friendly.
Before we move on to Fran's points here, I'd like, because I might forget, I'd like to say that the language you added at the beginning of the plan to make it more understandable to the public, I thought was really good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we've got our section on pets up here. Do we want to add an additional
I mean,
sentence?
as you can see on the side, there's a few others that talk about pets, but this is the most sort of, this is in the actual population section. It's the most sort of generic piece about pets in general, instead of like their role or their impact on recreation or their impact on something else. This is just generally, we should anticipate more pets.
That's a required
Something about the requirement to
to be
follow
registered.
the ordinances, be registered, and follow the ordinances.
I mean, that's already, yeah, okay.
I mean, that's redundant because you're supposed
It's
to
a,
do that.
yeah, it's not like, I don't know if there's a policy statement in there, like, are you trying to say something like there
Something
should be more enforcement of
Something
that?
or
That's
more
different.
education about
Yeah.
what the ordinance requires.
Yeah, and that I could actually add to the last, just add a short
Owners who
bit to
don't
that last
control their
sentence.
lists should be put down.
What's that?
Is it just cats and dogs?
I think you're suggesting that be put down, is that what you were saying?
The owners who can't control their pets.
Oh, owners just can't control it.
Yeah, just one of the ordinance separate from registration.
These cats kill.
The
all
city
birds and
requires
chipmunks.
dogs.
That's
All.
Is it good?
It just says the city requires dogs and cats to be registered. Is there more to be said?
Is it registered or licensed?
Registered.
Licensed would be the word, yeah. Yeah, they are registered, but licensed.
registered and licensed.
All, you
Yeah,
want to
because
put all
registered
dogs
is
and
the
cats,
action, licensed is
including
the
Oh,
in.
okay,
city.
whatever.
Right?
Okay,
Okay.
Right, let's go.
Okay,
Fran,
Fran, you have some things? Is that,
Yeah, a few.
okay?
I don't know. I don't think-
I can go wherever you need to go. Where are you? What are you looking at?
Excuse me.
So, on the comments about, you had sent out that airport's rezoning task force final report. And I wondered if they had some recommended actions on that task force. I wonder if, I mean, some of them are already covered. You know, we've got that action 146 and 148, that takes care of a couple of them. The one about the airport, commercial and/or industrial uses allowed in the airport district are incompatible with the residential uses in the Chamberlain neighborhood and should not be allowed to advance closer to the remaining residents. Could that be added as a goal for Northeast? Some things,
It's added in narrative in a different form. Like this, it's the same sentiment. It's a similar sentiment, but it's already in the text.
and okay, so we had something about in the, they mentioned from the 2016 comprehensive plan, some wording that says, as the city considers how to meet transportation and land use needs of the airport, care should be taken to minimizing through traffic on purely residential roads. I didn't know if that could.
That's also in there in sort of different phrasing. Again,
Okay, and then I think that, was it the fellow that spoke at the public hearing or his notes or something? Under the energy, somebody called out that emissions generated at the Leahy, at the airport are only from the ground service equipment and don't include airplanes taking off?
Yeah, that's true.
It is true. I wonder if we should state, do we need to state that somehow? Because when the airplane takes off, those emissions belong to the airline. And when the city is, Burlington is talking about reducing emissions, they really only apply to their trucks and the ground service equipment in the airport. We need
So
to identify that
the
somehow.
airport itself is also doing a climate
Right.
plan,
think that
and they are
that's-
owned by the city of Burlington. If you like, I do have somewhere in here a paragraph that was put into the climate action plan that was worked through to address those. We worked with the city of Burlington, the Burlington International Airport, and ourselves to make sure that it was an accurate statement all around. Do you want me to see if I can find that and pull it for you?
Well, I wonder if we just need to, I think it's on page 31 of the existing plan. I wonder if we need to just put in something so people don't think it's aircraft.
Come on.
Oh, no. It's on 31 of the public hearing packet. That might be different than 31 that we're looking at. Oh, no, there it is. It is on page 31, just above buildings and thermal energy sector. It's a little tiny paragraph, and then there's one that starts emissions generated by the Leahy International Airport are being considered and addressed by the city of Burlington and the airport administration. City must collaborate and engage with the airport to reduce emissions. I mean, it makes sense to me. It's just that I felt that the comment that was raised was that it wasn't clear to them that the aircraft weren't part of that.
So here's what the climate action plan
Okay.
says that might address it. It says, no, because it's like one font, it won't be readable. The inventory, so this is talking about the inventory that was done for the climate, for the South
Yeah.
Burlington Climate Action Plan. The inventory does not explicitly account for specialized on-site vehicles and motor equipment such as forklifts or ground vehicles in support of airport operations. Further, the inventory does not account for aviation emissions, nor are these targets or actions associated with this source. In a parallel effort, the then called Burlington International Airport, supported by its consultant, is completing a sustainability management plan that will enable the airport to better understand its existing performance in the areas of energy, wind, waste, greenhouse gas emissions. And then it goes on a little bit more, but does that cover what you're saying about what it specifically, what it is and isn't?
No, well, I don't know. Do we need to be clearer in the plan?
Where is it?
Page 31,
It's page 31.
right above buildings and thermal
Yeah,
energy
so if you,
sector.
yeah, if you, buildings and thermal energy. Yeah.
That's
Right there, where it says the word emissions. Kind of using the broad term of emissions generated. I think somebody was reading as being everything that takes place inside the fence. But it isn't really. Because some of it belongs to the airlines.
Reductions in emissions generated by buildings.
Well, some of the emissions, I mean, when the airplane takes off, that's not considered
So-
airport.
No, it's talking about
It's
generation,
considered
emissions generated by buildings.
Yeah, so this is in the
This is
section
above- this is
about
transportation.
transportation. So this one's heading is
So,
transportation energy sector.
Trying to elaborate, in support of its assessment, this again from our climate action plan, Burlington International Airport will be developing a greenhouse gas emissions inventory with the focus on the airport's scope 1 emissions, direct airport controlled, and scope 2 emissions, indirect purchased electricity. The airport scope 3 emissions, indirect controlled by others, which
Right.
falls into all the other categories, will also be addressed to the extent the data is readily available. The greenhouse gas emissions inventory will be prepared using the airport carbon and emissions reporting tool. So I recall a little bit going down this rabbit hole with them. Airports have these scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. That's sort of an internationally accepted or nationally accepted way of measuring it. And they may not be able to get the data from the military side because the military won't give it to them. So to the extent that they have it. Do
I
you?
guess I'm
want
okay
to-
with what the plan says. It's just, I don't know if it's clear to them.
And this is talking about them being addressed by the city of Burlington and the airport administration. So these things are really completely out of our hands anyway.
Yeah.
So whether they're included in what the city's doing or not, it's beyond our purview,
Right.
which is kind of frustrating, but it's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind leaving it the way it is. It was a comment that came up. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize that that was probably right. Okay.
But they're only considering what you've written, which is ground support equipment.
No, there's class 1, class 2, class 3.
No.
So
Yeah, so
there are others and they break them into the what.
Yeah, but we don't want to put all that in here.
No, we
No.
don't want to put that in. You know, I didn't know if there was a way to simplify what we said.
You could just say that it's out of the control of this plan.
I just leave it the way it is. Yes, it's okay.
We're responsible for the neighborhood.
He
And
said
then
noise
I
pollution.
just said, I had a couple of other things on
Motorcycles, when they're going down Shelburne Road at night, it is deafening.
Spear Street too.
Okay, keep going, Fran.
So there were some comments on the public hearing about pesticides, and I wondered if we should include something about the impact on public health, as opposed to just the impact on the environment. And I wondered, so like on environmental goal 37,
$52. 37.
30, oh no, 37?
37 and 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was,
If we added the word efforts undertaken with public health, environmental justice, and equity.
Yeah, I like putting public
Yeah.
health in there. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. That was what she was emphasizing in her
Right,
follow-up statements.
right. And the same thing I think could be done in action 52. Educate the community about public health, safety, and environmental impacts.
yeah, that was by Dr. Gallant.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought there was we could put environmental action 52 and 46 together, because two of them talk about, one talks about lawns and one talks about pesticides and herbicides. If they're together, they read them at the same time.
Oh, just organization?
Yeah, just organization.
52 and which one?
46 talks about lawns, and just move it up. So they just read them.
Keep talking, I'm just remembering now.
Yeah. Then I guess that's good.
What?
You got one more, come on.
I had the one more about the northwest area and Chamberlain.
Was it one we already talked about or a
I
new?
think we did, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Just
from-
one quick note for you that we received an email at the end of the day from Marjorie Litson, who attended your last week's meeting, and she just wanted to report. I will not be able to be at the meeting tonight because I'm attending the DRB meeting. However, I did not want my absence to signal that I had not paid attention to the changes you've incorporated into the city plan. I appreciate your responsiveness both last week and in the subsequent days. It looks much more appropriate. So just wanted to share that you had some user feedback from changes that you made to some of its concerns.
Okay,
Figured I'd read
so
it aloud, Paul.
There you go.
at this point, I believe Kelsey has immediately documented all of our changes. So we do have a red line that includes everything we've talked about up to this point, plus some notes on the maps that will be done later. Is there anything else that anyone wants to talk about? Because I think we're nearing ready to potentially vote.
Some of this where we have a drum roll.
Before you vote, you do have one member of the audience who's been sitting here. I don't know if she wants to say anything, but just give
Okay,
it to one person who sat through all this.
great. Do we have any public comment before we kind of wrap up our discussion?
Going once.
Did you have any?
No, it's all good. I really appreciate the care that you are taking with all of this.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Darren.
I did want to point something out. This is, it's kind of, take it how you will. We do have a gentleman who gave us 4 pages of feedback. We didn't mention any of his feedback. Just, it's Mike Simon. I mean, we all know Mike. He gave us 4 pages of feedback, and probably most of you don't agree with any of his feedback. But we didn't.
Actually, I
read it.
I
Oh,
do.
all right.
Kelsey, do we have anything in there about the housing needs study? I'm actually glad you brought this up because
Yeah.
one of his comments was about the housing needs study, and we've actually talked about
We
that,
did, yeah, we have talked about it in the past.
but I'm not sure if it made it in. Like at this point, we had that, the initial like
What-
housing
Was that an action?
study
plan
that was
or
pretty long
a goal in
ago.
the housing section? I know we did.
Are you talking about the request by the housing committee for a new needs assessment? Because Kelsey's got that in that list of things that you're going to do in the future. You know, that paragraph that says there are various studies that you're planning to do, not just housing.
But I think
There was a housing needs assessment way back.
yeah, and it's, not super current, but I think one of Mike Simino's comments was that we might want to add an action to do the housing needs assessment, because you're right, it's in the
Yeah.
list of things we want to do, but I don't know that it's actually an action.
That's right. It's only in the list, I think.
That's right. I'm just looking at it now and I'll put it up on the board.
Anything else in there that you, that was the word one that jumped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, his general comment was about, allowing higher density in the southeast quadrant too, which, I mean, the comment under housing actions, it would seem to me that addressed some of what he was talking about as well.
Yeah, so Donna wrote that one.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out how to.
I just wanted to note it, I mean.
No, I think that's really
He
good.
gave us
So-
4 pages of commentary. I mean, again,
Well, and also the introduction, I mean, that comment also kind of.
we heard that from them.
So that said, is there anything else from that list of 4 pages that, I know that was the one I had noted, and
That-
forgot to bring.
No, that's actually, I'm glad you did.
Carolyn's on the housing committee, so she would be.
I think he had a lot of comments about the Hubbard Park, but the council had already taken.
Yeah, I
Step,
didn't want to get into that. Okay.
Yep.
Then we can,
Make a motion.
yeah.
Michael's dying to do it over here. He's chomping at the bit.
Nah,
Next to me.
move. I don't know what the motion is.
You
but
can do it, Duncan.
I would move to forward the
Kelsey, you have
City
language?
Plan 2024 to the city council.
So
So what I wrote was, I move to submit City
Submit.
Plan 2024 to City Council. The verb submit is what's in state statute.
Friendly amendment. I move to submit the City Plan 2024 to the city council
Oh, and the accompanying report.
and the accompanying report.
I will second that.
No, well, Paul seconded the first time, so if that was
Oh, wow.
only a friendly amendment, then we
Paul
need-
gets the second?
we need the seconder to agree.
Yeah, I agree. with
Okay.
that.
Um,
I was going to use the word
Vote.
transmit.
any discussion on the
I
motion?
think we got to start over.
Do you wanna do individual calls about, are you saying,
No, I was joking. I was making a bad joke.
okay, then, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
unanimous.
There are no bad jokes. It's necessary to have some levity.
Oh, and we're all here.
Mhm.
Unanimous, unanimous.
And
So you can take the next 8 years off, folks. 7 years, you should probably get going on.
You guys
Yeah,
schedule a
sort of-
public meeting.
I think it's appropriate to acknowledge what we just did,
Yeah.
what you guys have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is yeoman's work, but what we have done, I feel really good about it. And I feel really good about the collaboration that's gone on. So I just wanted to say that publicly, and
And we didn't make it any easier for them.
we didn't make it any easier for them, but I hope everybody else feels as good about this document as I do. 'Cause I think a lot of
It's a true.
really positive work has gone into it.
And the city's going to have to buy me a new computer. The stress in this room was so much that it's gone dead.
I did it with my mind.
Kelsey wanted that
You
done.
poured it out with all your comments.
Madam Chair, may I also make another motion?
No,
No.
No.
Maybe, yeah.
if it's
To
adjourned, the
approve-
answer
to
is
approve
no.
the- I make a motion to approve the September 12th minutes.
Oh, we have a.
We have,
a way to
You're out of
say-
order.
there's some other issues, some other stuff.
You have one more thing.
How about you make a motion to approve the municipal grant applications?
Well, hold on. I was going to throw a wrench at us.
No, you don't have to do that tonight. You can do that next week. We wanted to give you a week to introduce what it is, but if you're ready to approve them, that's great with us.
Okay.
Did
Do we need
everyone,
to know what it is?
Yes.
did everyone read them?
No, I haven't read it.
It's in the packet.
We're proposing, so each year municipalities can apply for municipal planning grants and more recently bylaw modernization grants. We've been looking amongst the staff and our resources, what is the best way to make use of existing internal staff? What's the best way to make use of our consulting budget to hire consultants without any sort of strings attached about what has to happen to prioritize to a grant, and what things are best to be grant supported. So Kelsey had put in, I think it was last week's packet,
Mhm.
a summary of all the projects that we've got coming in the next year. The ones that we are advocating, we think would be the best matches for planning grants would be one on the municipal planning grant to support the development of the city's first ever parks master plan. The council last month, it was sketching out how to make use of ARPA funds, and they penciled in $150,000 towards that effort. This would either add to it or take a little bit of a break from it, depending on, exactly how we scope out the project. But we think that it's a project that you all have been talking about for years. This is an opportunity to defray some of the costs and do something that we think the state would be really excited to see us doing, which is part of, finding projects that they'd be excited about. The second one, bylaw modernization, there's a whole bunch of things that we are well aware that you want to work on in the bylaws, from S100 to the form-based code. A lot of those, we think we want to be nimble to either do in-house or just directly hire the consultants that we want to hire. Not we, but without the state telling us, oh, you've got to meet these certain grant parameters. One that we have heard a fair amount of and that matches really closely to our TIF goals of making sure that we're seeing the redevelopment in appropriate places is that our bylaws in San Remo Drive, which is part of the form-based code don't really address any of the uniqueness of San Remo Drive. And so what we're seeing is not a lot is happening there, whereas that could be an area of arts, entertainment, excitement. You know, I don't want to compare us to our neighboring community, but you could imagine
Lion Street.
an area like that, which, you know, could have some evolution in it, and just the tools are they're not really supporting it. So that's where we thought we could do something that would get started in about a year. So it would be next year through the following year to be undertaking that project. So
Next year being 24, right? It would be awarded in the winter of
Would be-
24.
awarded in the winter, and then you have 2 years to complete
Yeah.
it. So we would anticipate starting it next summer-ish.
Yeah.
So that was our pitch. It doesn't mean that all the rest of the things that you've been talking about Act 47, about the rest of the form-based code, it doesn't mean that those things are not happening. It just means that's not the funding source that we're recommending for.
And one other wrinkle to that is because some of the Act 47, S100 stuff is actually, the timeline is much sooner, that the getting grant funding in sort of February, March and doing it next summer doesn't match with
Too
what we
slow
need to be
for
doing.
us.
So that's
Right.
part of, we're identifying something we want to do, but that we want to do next summer was part of this.
And I support in applying for it.
So the council has to formally act to submit it, and if Jessica needs to sign on behalf of the planning commission that the commission has supported. I mean, she doesn't have to, but if she doesn't, then we don't get the grant.
So
Oh,
do we
okay,
need a
well-
motion?
We need
Yeah.
a motion.
So I would move to approve or approve planning commission approval of the two grants as presented to us.
Wait a second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And, you know, I think just to reiterate what Laurie was saying before, I think we would not have gotten to this point with comp plan finished and going to council and all of these other projects moving forward and you being able to like evaluate grants and make sure we're on track for our next projects without like such amazing staff, so. Thank you, Paul and Kelsey.
Thank you very much. Unanimous and what else can we put in front of the
I
vote
don't
on
know,
tonight?
they're in very good mood.
Heartfelt.
Yes.
Huge salary range for the planning staff.
Oh, I thought you meant the planning commission. Those haven't moved up.
I think we can vote on that.
I second it.
Since I missed it by a millisecond because we were adjourned, I move that we approve the minutes of September the 12th, 2023.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. How exciting.
All right,
Good.
thank you, everyone.
You want.
We can be adjourned. We will
Thank you
see
for
everyone
sticking
next
around,
week.
Darylyn.
What's our next big project?
Your next two big projects are going to be